Hello and welcome back to the Behind the Sign series, and today I'm joined with Chelsea Kolleda with Novavista Property Management.
Hi guys, happy
Chelsea,
to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
So Chelsea, you are a property manager. How long have you been with Novavista?
With Novavista, almost a year.
Okay.
February will make it 1 year mark.
Already. We got to get you an anniversary present then coming up soon.
Oh, okay, awesome.
We won't forget.
All right.
So how long have you been a property manager?
About 6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised here in sunny Melbourne, Florida, and I've been doing property management about 6 years. 4 of those years have been in single-family rentals. I started in apartment communities, and I managed a few different ones throughout Brevard. The most I've managed in an apartment community, we had about 390 units.
Wow.
So it was a little crazy.
That sounds crazy.
It was very busy. And then I decided I wanted to try something different, and so I took a stab at single-family homes. And
Which ones you like better?
Single family, for
Single
sure.
family, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And
Different
you're managing
ballgame.
how many now?
We have 50, just 50.
50, yeah.
Yep. And our goal is to have 60 by the end of this month, and we're
All
going to
right,
do it.
there you go, Chelsea. You can do it.
We're going to do it.
So property management notoriously has some difficulties with it. So I'm going to start this off with a property management horror story. So we're going to jump right into the good stuff.
Oh, man.
So
okay.
tell us your favorite property management horror story.
So there are many challenges with property management. They're not all turned into horror stories.
You get a lot more
but
stories out of property management. Real estate sales has plenty of fun stories.
Yeah.
But I think property management probably tops that.
Possibly. I'm not quite sure. I've heard a lot of good ones, but I would say one of mine, it's an older one. It was when I was with my first apartment community.
Okay.
I lived on site, and living on site was great. You know, you got a little discount, and it was convenient. You just walk right to the office and go to work.
Yeah. Live where you work.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, there was good things and bad
Pros and
things
cons.
about that part, for sure.
The tenants that you had tough conversations with get to see you every morning.
Yes,
Yeah.
or they knock on your door after hours.
Yeah.
That happened a couple times.
Hey, my faucet's leaking.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, the horror story that I remember specifically, I was newer to the company, and I had a little old lady moving from out of state. Sweetest lady. Everything she owned packed into her car, including her dog. She comes into town, goes to move into her apartment, and comes and reports that she has roaches, like infested, that were not reported when the tenant moved out. So
the old roach infestation trick.
Yes, which you never like to see, of course, but it happens. We live in Florida. So she ends up not having anywhere to go, of course. I feel awful. It's like one of my first leases, I'm like, what am I going to do? My boss let me put her up in our model unit, which was gorgeous, fully furnished, of course, for a couple days. I was in the process of moving off site at that time. So what ended up happening, of course, we took care of the roach issue. It took a couple weeks, multiple treatments.
Yeah.
You know how that
Was
goes.
bad then.
Yeah. But she stayed in the model unit for a few days, and then I actually expedited my move out so she could take my unit. She ended up getting a upgraded unit for the same price as the non-upgraded unit. And she was super happy. She was the sweetest lady. Like, it just worked out really well.
Well, that had a happy ending to it.
It did, yes.
Yes.
But that's one of the one I specifically remember because I was so new to the business, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I get over this challenge? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, have you ever had anyone die in a unit?
Garrett. Yeah. This year. This year.
That was a sad story.
That was a very sad story.
We had to make light of it a little bit, but
we did, yeah.
He was a great guy.
He was a great guy, for
R.I.P.
sure.
So, vetting tenants, that can be kind of a tough process, but do you have any advice for us as far as, processes or anything to help vet tenants better?
Yes. So I would say when you are at your showing, get to know get to know them as best as you can without being too invasive and, too personal, because you don't know them like that. But, where are you from? Where do you work? What do you do? Just kind of get to know them, so that way you can have natural conversation and actually kind of get a feeling for them. Not saying judge a book by its cover, but you can kind of tell who's going to be responsible, who's not going to be responsible, once you get to know somebody. So I'd say definitely have conversation at the showing with your prospects. Get to know them a little bit. And then as far as screening people, you always want to make sure you've got good credit score. They don't have any past balances due to landlords, of course. No previous large charge-offs. You don't want to see any of that. You want to make sure all their utility bills are always paid. And then we do always make sure that they gross about 2.5 times the rent as minimum. Because I've heard so many people say, oh, I accepted this guy who was on Social Security, and I knew, that's income every month, definite. But they don't think about the other expenses that you have to live. So just going based off of that, you don't make a whole lot on Social Security sometimes. And you've got to make sure that there's a threshold. And we usually go 2.5 to 3 times the rent to make sure that they can cover all of their living expenses, not just the rent. So that's really important. And we always do landlord verifications, rental references. That's huge.
Past history rentals.
Correct.
Where they paid on time, et cetera.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's always a huge plus.
Awesome. And then what about any of the circumstances where you run into where, have you had to make exceptions for people, or worked out something with the landlord, whether they're putting down additional months or things like that?
Yeah, we have. I've had some tenants that are like, hey, I've got 6 months in rent I can pay in advance. And that's essentially up to the owner if they want to accept that or not. We also accept cosigners. So like if you need someone to supplement that income or supplement on the credit side, we can take a look at that and make sure the owner's comfortable with approving someone like that. So we do accept cosigners. I had someone, we broke up like the deposit. They paid it in 2 halves. And that was great. As long as it's written in the lease that they're agreeing on that and you're agreeing on that, you're pretty, you have your safety net there. So it works out usually.
Owner's discretion, but at the same time, here's some things we can do in addition to make landlord feel more comfortable about moving forward.
Right. Yep. And help the applicant and the tenant. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. So how about now from the other side? Got, someone that's out looking for an investment property. Any advice for that person who's like, I think getting the rental is a good idea, long-term investment. What should they be looking for or, trying to avoid?
So if you're looking to purchase an investment home, I would say make sure you get your inspections done before closing on the sales side when you're buying. No matter what the cost of the home is, no matter you're paying cash, get an inspection done because you don't want to invest more money than you have to. You're buying this property so that way you make money on it, not dump money into it. Of course, you're going to have things that you have to do always when you buy a house, right? So, but get your inspections done. Make sure systems are all in good condition, working condition, because people are going to be using those systems a lot. I would also say avoid carpet if at all possible, or else you're going to be changing it out a lot. You've got a lot of traffic, if you're going to keep it as an investment home. If it has a pool, my best suggestion, include the pool care.
100%.
Make sure you calculate that into your budget and your rent every month, because you want to make sure that that is maintained, because restoring a pool is very expensive.
Yeah. I think pool you have, and Chelsea manages all of my rental properties. If you already have a pool home and you want to rent it, great. I mean, my personal opinion on it is avoid buying pool homes for rental properties. I think outside of maintenance costs, it's also like another layer of liability, and especially when you have kids and, I mean, a body of water, things, more things to break.
Yep.
So, that would be how I feel about it as well.
Definitely something to think about if you're looking for an investment home. Yeah.
Yep. And Chelsea, you've done a great job managing mine, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I was doing it by myself for a while, and I'm currently glad I am not.
You found some good tenants before I came along, though.
Yes,
so
I've had some good.
You've got really good people in there.
Long-term tenants.
Yeah.
And you have some people who, and you can give me your opinion on this. And I bought my first one in 2015, so rents have gone up a lot since 2015. I myself personally have been relatively, I don't know what the right word is. Fair as far as like rental price increases.
Yes.
Because I feel like, when you have a good tenant in there, they're making payments on time. They're taking care of the place. Like I'd rather, give that person the support by not, jacking the rent up just because market value says so. Because vacancy cost is big too. Like, you get 1 month of vacancy and now you just, that $200 a month that you were going to increase it. Well, you just wiped the whole profit away from
empty.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you feel about that?
No, I agree 100%. It depends. Like you said, you bought yours in 2015. Prices have changed quite a bit.
Yep.
Inflation obviously is affecting us a lot this year. And taxes are going up. Insurance
Taxes
is
and
crazy.
Insurance are tough.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on your financial situation as an owner, whether or not you need to look for that increase. But you definitely don't want to scare a good tenant away and do an increase of anything more than like $100. I'm like, hey, they can definitely go down the street and get something cheaper, and you're going to lose a renter. And it's not always worth it. Like you said, if it's sitting vacant for a month, you're losing out on that money anyway.
You got a month, 2 months vacancy. Now you just wiped away your whole net of that, whatever that increase.
It's not worth losing a good tenant either. I'll tell you that. So, because you never know, you might be chasing the next person that comes in, or they, might have more problems than the previous renter. So it's always worth the risk. But I think from a financial standpoint, if you have to do an increase, I totally
just
get
make
it.
it reasonable.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to do it. Insurance, like you said, insurance taxes have gone up a lot in the last few years, and but it's like that's my advice is be reasonable about it. And I've also found, as far as listing price, like when putting up place up for rent, like if you're always that person that's like, hey, these other ones, rented for 2,000, like let's try mine at 2,500. Like it sits, and then a lot of times I've just found, and I don't have anything other than my own experiences on it, but like you get like one person interested or something, and then it's because they got denied 14 other places, and they're like, I'll pay more because no one else wants this one because it's listed too high, versus pricing it correctly and then getting like a really good tenant.
Right. And then you wonder.
Have you found that too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely this year for sure, even because back in COVID and all that, rentals and sales, they're flying off the shelf like hotcakes. And this year, much different. We've quieted down a lot, especially since like June and July. Like when I do my comps, I don't even go back that far because it's changed so much that that doesn't matter anymore. You have to look at what happened within the last like 60 days, almost 60 to 90. But I do find a lot of owners, I tell them, hey, I always pull a comparable for them. I at least grab 3 or 4 properties that are within a 1 mile radius of their home. And I say, this is what this one's going for. Let's take a look at this. I usually pull an active and a closed, at least one of each, to show them to compare. And you definitely want to get top dollar. So I tell the owners, I never want to lose business. So I'll list it at whatever you want is what I tell them. But please, if I come to you in a week or two and I want to do a price decrease because I'm not getting traffic, trust me and let me do that decrease. But I will start it at whatever you want as long as it's within reason.
It's their property, so it's like, okay, you got to have the conversation with them like, hey, this is what the market's saying. We can try this. Hey, maybe we do get lucky. And they always fall back to, what if it happens? But it's like you got to weigh out also that vacancy cost
absolutely
and time of holding it. And it is tough now with interest rates being higher than they were, a few years ago, finding that, because that's obviously one of the big pieces of, when you're evaluating a rental property to buy, it's like, if you're getting a mortgage, is my rent going to have an additional cash flow above what the mortgage is going to be? So that's important, and it's also tough to find now.
Right now it is, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it takes a couple years to get a return on your investment. But it depends on the situation. There's a lot of people that have their homes on the sales market this year, and they need it to move, and it's not moving.
Yeah.
So they put it on the rental market, and they're like, oh, I really don't want to miss out on this much. And I'm like, something is better than nothing. If you're in a pinch and you do need to get out from under it quickly, putting it up as a rental is always an option. And maybe you don't cover the full mortgage, but maybe next year you do.
Yeah.
So it depends. It's
There's
definitely situational.
Yep. Lot of strategies to it. And when people ask, like, what are the benefits of owning a rental property? Like, in the most simplest concept there is, you're purchasing an asset with the anticipation that's going to appreciate. So you bought an asset that's going to appreciate, and now you have this asset that someone else is paying off, so is paying the mortgage on. And that's like, there is no other, you buy a stock or something, like, it doesn't have that, both the appreciation and then someone else paying it off. So
Correct.
it's like my simple dummy version of, hey, these are the benefits of owning a rental property.
No, it's perfect.
But there's a bunch, and I mean, you get tax benefits of it too. And so, like, some people, even in the cases where they do have negative cash flow, but maybe they have, decent income or whatever, like, okay, this is going to save me some taxes, and I have someone else paying off an asset. So
yep, absolutely.
Lots of benefits to it. So been in property management now for a long time. What are some lessons that you've learned along the way, hard or easy ones?
Lots of lessons. I would say my biggest lesson is pick your battles. Not only in my career, but in life in general, pick your battles.
That's good life advice. Choose your battles.
Yeah, choose your battles. Not everything needs an instant answer right away. Sometimes you just need to let it simmer, think on it. And I try to remember that instead of being super quick to act on something.
Yeah, choose your battles.
Yes, pick your battles and enjoy the wins, even if they're small wins. It still matters. Just getting through my checklist for the day is like the best feeling sometimes, because days can be crazy.
That's it. Property management can definitely be stressful.
Yes.
Dealing with tenants and dealing with landlords. Remembering the wins is important, and Chelsea and I do a weekly meeting, and we always start it with good news for the week.
Yes.
Big or small, because you got to remember the small things as well.
Absolutely.
The small wins.
Like getting up your Christmas tree last
like
week.
Getting up the Christmas tree.
Finally.
With Donna's blinds. We've seen some, like, landlords being nervous about, they're managing it themselves. They're nervous about being the liaison between themselves as a homeowner and property manager and the tenant. Any words of advice on that? Or, and we can also roll this into, like, what are the benefits of hiring a property manager?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're nervous about being the middleman, totally understood. It's a tight rope to walk, because you want your tenants to like you. You want to have a good relationship with them, so that way they continue to renew and you have a long-term tenant in place, especially if they're a good tenant that pays on time. But at the same time, you have to abide by what's in the lease. So that's always my fail-safe. Like, I make friends with my tenants, but I also have to remember at the end of the day, I work for the owner. So I'm there to protect their investment, their budget, their asset. I want my tenants to stay, like I said, but when it comes down to it, if it's something that the owner doesn't approve or doesn't want to do, we have to abide by what's written in the lease. That's always my fail-safe. Refer to the lease if all else fails. And that's always a good point. If you don't want to hire a property manager, that's a good backup too. Just make sure that you're abiding by what's in the lease agreement. It is a legal binding contract, so you go with that, and just be professional. You can still be friendly and stern at the same time. It's taken a while for me to master that. But it is a tough balance. It is. It definitely is, because you want to stay on both of their good sides. Because
having a good relationship with the people that you're doing business with is obviously the best way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're in the middle, it's hard to make both parties happy all the time. So.
And that is one of the things, because I've never had a property manager. I've done the property management myself for my own until you started doing it, and I definitely appreciate not having to be in that position. And I also like having you specifically doing it, because property managers generally get the stigma of being like these grouchy, Like,
Yes.
don't answer their phone. I'm in a bad mood. Don't ask me questions.
Don't approach me.
Don't approach me. And I think that you've done a really good job of being both like friendly and approachable, but also like, hey, here's the policy. Here's what's in the lease. You got to do X and Y. So having that good balance is important. So,
Well, thank you.
yes, you're doing great with that. And that's a, outside of obviously, I like not having to just deal with it, period, and knowing that it's getting done. But it's also just, it's easier, and it's a cop out for me, of course, or anybody, but it's like, you got to make tough conversations, tough decisions sometimes. And it's like, well, Chelsea's going to do that for me.
Yeah, so I don't have to stress.
And so, yeah.
I've had so many new owners that have like, hey, my tenant just moved out. I did it by myself the first year, and it's getting kind of tough, whether they live out of state or maybe they're just really busy with their career and they live in Florida. I've had so many owners say, I already refunded the deposit and they damaged this, and this. And I'm like, no, you're not supposed to do it that way.
Yep.
So I think that I got a lot of new owners this year that are happy that we do our move-in inspections. We do our move-out inspections. We're very thorough with that. And that does help back up, if you do have to withhold something from the deposit, you have that proof and that information to back up the situation.
Yeah.
So that's big. And I have a lot of owners that I think are happy to have that this year.
For sure.
Because they missed out on, some money that they could have recouped.
Yeah.
So.
And I have in the past by just being like, to where I, essentially let someone just take advantage of it. And I'm like, I just don't want to deal with it. Like,
you're just too nice.
It's just like, just like, okay, whatever. But, I try to give honest advice to people, and like you do the same as far as like, should I hire a property manager? And, there are some times when this is kind of like, as an example, like some of my thoughts. Single owner, owner owns a single property. They're local. They're one of those, like, I'm a go-getter. I'm not afraid to like I can take control of things. I'm very resourceful. I'll do things myself. If I got to get a tenant out of there, hey, I'll figure out how to do an eviction. And like, if you're in that case, like, go for it. Like, if you're someone who's like got multiple properties and still has a full-time career, or if you have one property and you're like, hey, if this toilet breaks, like, I don't really know the best person to call. Or if this tenant's paying rent late, like, I hate making that phone call. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what to say. I'm going to let them run all over me.
I had one of those this year too.
Yeah.
And she's very happy to have us on now.
Yeah. And I've sold, I remember one person specifically, I sold a property to, super sweet lady. And she was resourceful, but she couldn't handle any additional stress. And honestly, the tenant wasn't like, they weren't a terrible tenant at all. Like, was a pretty like decent tenant, but it was like just a few things that would come up that added to her day-to-day stress. She was just like, I don't want to, like,
a lot of little things can
I
pile
don't want
up,
to do this anymore. Like, it's just like too much. So there's times to get property managers, and then there's times where I'm like, hey, just, save yourself a little bit of money, do it yourself.
Yeah, and I tell people,
and that's what give honest advice to people is important.
Absolutely, and we're always here for advice. So even if you're like wavering between, should I hire a property manager, should I not? Who do I call for this plumbing job? I'm happy to recommend.
Yeah.
We have vendors. I'm happy to give advice, whatever I can do to help make your decision easier for what's best in your specific situation.
Yep.
And I always tell owners, try it for a year on your own if you're in the middle. And if it becomes too much, give me a call. You have my number. So we love getting business, absolutely. But if it's not right for you, it's not right. I've even had people this year that it just didn't make sense for them to rent their, like, the numbers didn't work for them to list it as a rental.
I can't cover my mortgage if I'm paying, every little dollar I got to keep this. And it's like, okay, and that's important because, as a property manager, you want to build like good relationships with people that want your services that you want to work with. And that's like how everybody wins in the end. So that's awesome. Well, on that note, tell us, Chelsea, how to reach you.
So you can get me at 321-3 335-4363. That is my work line, and I'm pretty much always available. I try to be. I do silence my phone at night. I have a family.
That's important.
But there's always an emergency number, and it does ring to me if there's anything crazy going on for tenants. You can also email me. My email is chelsea@novavistarentals.com. And you can also go to our website. I encourage you to go to our website because there's great information on there. It's www.novavistarentals.com. You can see all of our listings on there, a little bit of information about how we operate, and you can also schedule a meeting with me on there as well. There's a link that will have a scheduler and then some questions, some general questions like, are you a homeowner that wants to rent out your property? Or are you looking for a rental? Those are 3 great ways to get a hold of me: phone, email, or just go directly to our website. And I'm happy to talk to anybody and give advice, whatever you need. I'm here for you.
Awesome. Chelsea, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it.